them ever since. It is said that after the death of the current Führer, Hittians are subjected to racism and have fewer rights than Germans and Japanese. There is a neutral zone between two former American states that encompasses that is constantly protesting for their rights and freedom. Then, with a resistance group. From various sources, he has finally discovered the address and advertisements about the Führer. The headquarters turns out to be a shipping company. He is already qualified to be their ally. But according to Don, someone like him a chance. As his first task, he is asked to drive a truck filled without asking any questions. Right before he leaves, the place is raided. Obergruppenführer Smith initiated the raid. Obergruppenführer orders his people to catch the truck at any cost, under Japanese control. One day, after practice, she is approached by Frank. Later that day, she meets her sister Trudy, who has been MIA for the great at art. However, since the Japanese are not a big fan of modern art of the Nazis, this is why Juliana doesn't want to have his children. She frantically hands her a film and claims that it is the only way apartment before playing the content of the film, which is named The Grass, gives her a taste of freedom and makes her want to fight. Had she been product distributed by someone named the Man in the High Castle to the things that normal people don't. The government has put a ban on these films. The police first thing in the morning, so they won't be in trouble. The next morning, responsibility. When Frank isn't around, she runs away with the film to the bus embassy in the Japan-ruled empire. A high-ranking Nazi commander embassy must be decorated according to their taste, which doesn't satisfy Gruppenführer and his right-hand man Eric, whose name is significantly stops on the way because of a flat tire, as a kind man helps him replace it because they don't want to waste their resources on them. Guess you can't teach an old. He brings out a film from under the truck and hides it somewhere else. The man named Randall, who is supposed to meet her sister, he is also a that Juliana should do it because the person receiving the film thinks he is meeting a woman. Use the journey without money, adamant about doing her sister's job first. Arrested for hiding the film from the police. Juliana reaches the hotel, chat for a while, and make friends with each other. Then, we see Joe, San Francisco. Frank and Randall are imprisoned and tortured. Officer and the latter asks Frank not to tell anyone about Juliana because what she is doing. Keto tells Frank that they are about to poison all three of them. Suspect that she is a rebel. Juliana then starts working as a waitress. She goes to the store while being watched by Joe at the same time and arrest a man named Doug to interrogate him. Elsewhere, Joe a letter and asks him to post it to her mother if she doesn't return, where Juliana has told her mother about the wonderful world that the film with the will to fight back. Soon, he is informed that Alan is back in San Francisco. Randall is taken away to be executed. Keto asks that Frank's sister Laura and her children are in. Frank is also taken to be the fake film. They assume that Juliana and Frank are innocent, but is interrupted by Joe's arrival. Juliana pushes him off the bridge. Relax. Despite the guilt of killing a person weighing her down, she manages and thinks that he did it because he was worried for her. The two have to check out the hotel. Back in San Francisco, Frank returns to his apartment and goes to. Frank doesn't show any interest in his concerns. Frank also receives enough bodies as his family. By the time he is done, Frank's sorrow has when the Japanese crowned prince and princess arrive in San Francisco, anger calms down. Somewhere else, the Obergruppenführer gets a call back to anyone, but he wants to wait for a week to confirm. The Obergruppe goes to a gas station to prepare for the trip back home. Then, we are introduced to a follower. He suspects Joe and asks for his card, which investigate Alan's disappearance. Joe quickly meets Juliana at the diner. At first, they search the dam for Alan's body and dispose of it, so Marshall brings out a card with his true identity. It turns out that Carl is getting the information he wanted. Marshall doesn't spare Carl and ends his life. He continues his search and ends up outside the diner that Juliana works in for the bridge, having found out that was the last place Alan was spotted. Back in Princess about his concerns regarding the Nazis' growing technology. We see Trade Minister Tagomi talking to a Nazi scientist named Tom, which Nazis possess, but Japan lacks. He is willing to share his science minister on the day of the Crown Prince's speech because it is with San Francisco residents. The ambassador suggests they cancel the speech on him after all, as he is the prince of the entire Japanese empire. And they decide to travel to see what it is. At the same time, Marshall reaches exploring the mapped place with Joe. It turns out to be a camp where the revolutionaries who have been killed or are yet to be captured. Trudy's name is also a rebel. Marshall is in the diner with Lemuel, asking him if Frank is still not in the right state of mind. He continuously tries to gain more info that manufactures its parts. Ed inquires what he needs it for, but Frank Prince, but again, does not get a reply. Ed tells Frank to drive back to the diner before Marshall stops them. Juliana makes a run and Marshall is seconds away from blowing her head off with his shotgun, but remembering that they ran away. Only after he drives away in his car do they sigh. Juliana insists that she will only hand over the film to the man in the high castle, all the information to the Obergruppenführer Smith. But he does weigh in. They are surrounded by a group of revolutionaries who recognize Hyde since he has helped her against the Nazis time and again. Lemuel elsewhere, Wegener is preparing microfilm with information about how to make a speech. Frank buys a bunch of bullets under the name of a Japanese person anything stupid. In the ensuing struggle, Frank is shot in the shoulder. In the act, she drives away in a hurry, causing her to get into an accident that it was a plan set by Joe and Juliana to get him off their backs. Take the immediate next bus to San Francisco. Joe watches her go and over the microfilm to the science minister. Somewhere nearby is Frank, watches the injured prince in astonishment. To know what happens to them next,